Donna. My name is Diane Huth. I'm known as the Accidental Career Coach. I have been helping people find and land their dream job. A year and a half ago, I wrote this book for my college students when I discovered they didn't know how to find a job. And then I discovered the baby boomer unemployment crisis, which is very real. We're all here because of that. And so I wrote my new book, which I introduced last month, which is Reinvent Your Career, Beat Age Discrimination to Land Your Dream Job. So I'm very passionate about work and unfairness in terms of discarding baby boomers because companies don't recognize our values. So this book really hit home and was very relevant, I think, to where I'm at, helping people find meaningful employment. And in many ways, like Donna, transitioning, maybe we don't want to be doing what we did 20 years ago, but finding that new path that uses our talents and our skills to find meaningful employment as we live into our 80s and often into our 90s, then we want to be productive. Who wants to sit around and watch TV for 25 years? It sounds like the most boring thing possible. So I found this book very interesting. I had not heard about Chip and his story, and I think his story is fascinating. Very impressed by it. Chip had founded in his 20s a company that had put together about 50 different, bought, sold, and managed 50 different boutique hotels, and he was known as a master hotelier, hospitality guru. He managed those through good and bad for about 24 years. He really had a hard time during the downturn of 2008 and 2009, was trying to question what he wanted to do. And he ended up selling his business at the age of late 40s, I guess, during the bottom of the market. And so he did what a lot of us want to do. He traveled around the world and did fun things. And he started a business, Fest 300, which is a website which was dedicated to kind of commemorating and talking about it and acknowledging the 300 best festivals around the world. So he was having a great time. He came back and he ran into Brian, who reached out to him. And he had no idea who Airbnb was. He was out of the market. He was not aware of all the digital technology and the transformation that was going on in the online housing space or vacation and travel space. And Brian reached out to him and asked him to come and give a talk on hospitality innovation to his management team. And he did, and that led to getting to know the top executives. And a few weeks later, they reached out to him and said, hey, would you come on as a consultant and a mentor to us? And he was 52 at the time. And he kind of asked around and said, with his hospitality peers, and they said, this is a rocket ship that's getting ready to take off. Why don't you give it a chance? And so he did. He signed up for 15 hours a week of consulting. That immediately grew to 60 hours a week, because we know startups are all consuming. And so after a couple of weeks, he and Chip got together, Brian and Chip got together and said, look, we need you full time. We want you to head up our entire hospitality business as the director or head of hospitality. And so he did that. And so he jumped in full time as a senior leader of the company. Felt very uncomfortable. He did not know the technology. It was very clear early on that he did not know the language. He did not know the technology, and he felt like a fish out of water. He was supposed to mentor the senior leaders, and yet he felt more of an intern than a mentor. He brought things to the table, but he wasn't sure if they were as valuable as what the company was doing in terms of the technological leadership. He was working with a team that was half his age. The average age was mid-20s, the age of his son, and he wasn't sure how he fit in and where he could add value, and he was very tentative. At one of the first meetings, they asked him to talk about, what does hospitality mean? What does it mean to be a hospitality company? And he said, our goal should be disruption. And that became a motto of the company. And he had a quote from Gandhi, says, first they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, then you win. And that became the company's motto, as it really embraced disruption and it became a 24-hour around the clock because it's a global travel company. They were on all the time. And so it was, like I said, it was that rocket ship. It was very interesting. He became recognized for his wisdom, insight, and industry expertise because the people who were in the company at that time weren't in the hospitality industry. They were techies. And so he brought that industry value and that industry heritage with him. A few weeks into the company, one of his people who reported to him said, "How can you be so wise and so clueless at the same time?" And this really indicates the fact that we all have skills and we have deficiencies, and we really need to learn how to cross-mentor or co-mentor each other. He recognized his deficiencies, and yet the company recognized his value. So it was a challenging learning opportunity, but he was thirsty to learn and thirsty to embrace new information. And so he was able to fit into a company where he was very uncertain of his own contribution. And it's kind of a trade-off between EQ, emotional intelligence, and DQ, which is digital intelligence. And so it was a trade-off that he was able to work, and through this co-mentoring. One of his mottos was that he asked everyone, "How can I support you to do the best work of your life?" And that got people engaged because it was clear that he was offering to help them be the best that they could, and he was trying to get out of the way to help them. And so he did a lot of coaching, not only the senior execs, but he really took great joy in helping the mid-level managers who were kind of stuck in their job. They didn't know where he was. And so helping them to develop and regain their mojo, get excited and get back on the track through his leadership. And one of the key learnings that he had is the less that there was him in it, me, ego, concerning about me, the more room there is to give to you as a mentor. So you have to learn to set aside your own ego, needs, wants, etc., so that you are open to helping others meet their needs. And he says, and it kind of documents that there are 3 different ways that an outsider can play in an organization. The first is an advisor role, and that is a domain expert to assist with a very specific decision-making task. So as an advisor, you're an outsider looking in and giving advice. As a coach, you're helping the individual build tactical leadership skill. But as a mentor, you're going to help the person that you're supporting make the best decisions for themselves and also for their company. And so he says that mentors really become a mirror, and that you tend to mentor people that are kind of a younger you. You recognize the characteristics that you had when you were younger and a firebrand and doing the same thing. And then you use your wisdom and judgment and experience and all the mistakes we've already made to help coach that person so they don't make those same mistakes. They'll make different mistakes, but at least you can use your experience to help them miss making those same mistakes that we did. And that's kind of where you go from a mentor to an elder. And with elder, the role is editing, he says, where you edit all this information, like Donna says, you take all this experience and you edit it to help make you as good as possible. One of the other things he brought to the organization was focus, because when you're young and active, you want to do everything, and recognizing we can't do everything. We really need to focus on 1 or 2 key initiatives and do them really well, and not to be distracted by all these other bright, shiny objects, which is what many people in many organizations do. And he talks about as a mentor, you're responsible for inviting the genius, pulling the genius out of the person you're a mentee, the person that you're working for. Help to identify what makes that person so good and so brilliant, and enhance that, and helping to coach them to success. One of the guidelines that he gives is to intern publicly, but mentor privately. And so it's okay to ask stupid questions. You become very human and accessible. But when you're going to coach someone, you take them aside privately and you provide guidance and insight, never in public. And we all know that is a good management trait. But he says that's very important as a mentor. And he embraces reverse mentoring. I call it cross mentoring because we really need to mentor each other equally. So it shouldn't be a competition between EQ and DQ, emotional intelligence and digital. It should be and, so we work together. Genius is more measurable or quantifiable. Wisdom is an intangible. So we need to find ways to barter those two back and forth so everybody comes out ahead.
Thank you, Diane. I think that what's so interesting in what you're saying is that of course, what he has said is that he's bringing together the sage and the student, and that is just, that's really, really good. And I love that you're so passionate about it because you are obviously using it in your own work, and that's what this book is all about. So we're going to keep going so that we can